Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to hypnocoaching, the hypnotic arts and sciences generally, and spirituality. If you'd like to know more about my professional work, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Today, I want to talk about the emotion of envy. It's described usually as the feeling of discontent about the possessions, qualities, or fate of other people, often accompanied by unpleasant feelings. Now, envy is a dark emotion, and dark emotions concern me because when you're experiencing them, you're creating a biochemical reality inside your body that doesn't do you a bit of good, that decreases your effectiveness and even predisposes you to worse medical outcomes. So, as I think about envy, the first thing that comes to my mind is the story of Cain slaying his brother Abel that we read about in the 4th chapter of the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. In that story, Cain and Abel are the sons born of the legendary Adam and Eve. Abel became a shepherd while Cain became a farmer. Now, at that time, in that part of the world, it was the custom to sacrifice the first fruits of any harvest to whatever gods a person worshipped. In fact, in primitive times, parents would often literally sacrifice their firstborn child. Surely a horrible custom, and I'm glad to say there's been some progress. But scholars tell us that back then the custom was common. So, in keeping with that custom, Abel sacrificed one of his sheep and burned it on an altar, hoping the aroma would be pleasing to God. Cain did the same with vegetables and grains from his fields. However, the smoke from the fire set by Cain did not ascend into the sky. It was rejected by God, who apparently had decided against vegetarianism. However, the smoke from the meat offering by Abel did rise into the sky. Upset by this rejection, Cain killed his brother Abel in envious rage, becoming the first murderer, and the story becoming the archetypal meme of envy. Here's a painting by the 16th century Italian painter Bartolomeo Manfredi that shows the scene. Now, modern biblical scholars view this story as an echo of the culture war between herders and farmers. As the farmers began to push out hunter-gatherer peoples in ancient times in order to claim the land for agriculture, there was feuding between these two constituencies, and the story of Cain and Abel reflects this cultural battle. The story does demonstrate the difference between envy and the very different emotion of jealousy. These two emotions are similar and often confused, but one can distinguish between them. Envy is when someone has or experiences something you would like to have or experience, even if you know that might be unlikely. A person might envy the beauty of a supermodel without really thinking they could look that way. Jealousy is different. Jealousy is when something happens that threatens something that you do regard as yours or special to you, and you feel that that relationship between yourself and whatever that is somehow being threatened. Cain experienced envy, and he wanted the favorable attention of his God. But it wasn't like the God had favored him and then withdrawn that favor. He didn't lose anything. He just didn't gain the same favor that his brother got. That's envy, not jealousy. Perhaps a simple way to think about the difference between envy and jealousy is with this meme. Envy is how you feel when you're a guy in high school and you see the captain of the football team drive up in a brand new sports car that his parents brought him for his birthday. Jealousy is how you feel when he takes your girlfriend for a ride in it. You probably get the distinction now. But envy isn't all bad. If you think about it, the goal of every single ad you've ever seen is to get you to feel some envy so you might want to obtain whatever it is that's being advertised. That said, in my opinion, envy is typically a toxic emotion that messes with people and keeps them from enjoying the life they do have. Worse, envy can lead one to some really dark places. In German, there's an emotion called Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in the misfortune of others. We feel envy because they have things we don't, and when hard time comes upon them, we feel a little tickle of pleasure that what they had has been somehow darkened. That is a super toxic emotion. And nothing good, in my opinion, ever comes from feeling that way about other people. Now, I think the best way to deal with envy comes from looking at the origin of the word itself. Its origin is in the Latin word invidia, meaning non-sight or blindness. Here is another painting, this time from the 14th century, Giotto da Bernardone in the Savagone Chapel in Italy. Note that the words coming out of the speaker's mouth are represented by a snake which is curling back to bite the speaker, not the person he's speaking to. Envy arises in philosophical blindness because when you feel it, you're not really seeing what is the case. A lot of things are not as great as they seem from the outside. If you got that shiny new bauble, you probably discover that it doesn't make all that much difference to you after all. This is true of most of the things that capture our eye. We think they would make a big difference, but they really don't. Envy the lifestyles of the rich and famous, then sit down with Google and discover how many failed relationships and marriages and backstabbing children such people have. Discover that the spa-like gorgeous rehab centers that exist to do a booming business because people of such means are often in such pain they seek refuge in drugs or worse. Things are often not as they seem. What I suggest we do if we feel a tickle of envy is learn to reframe. When one feels envy, it's possible to catch oneself and rephrase that thought in one's mind. As a hypnotist, I can assure you that what you tell yourself in the privacy of your own mind has an enormous power to affect how you feel. Maybe what you think of as envy is really appreciation. I deeply appreciate the skills of martial artists who have made their art their whole career and who do things that I, as a lesser martial artist, cannot do. But I wasn't willing to sacrifice my lifestyle in order to put the time in to accomplish what they did. I like being a hypnotist. I like having a martial arts hobby. I appreciate the skills of others who are far more advanced than I am without being willing to do what they did to get there. Now, I may see a senior hypnotist demonstrate a technique that leaves me astonished. I might first feel envy that he or she could do that, but then I can quickly replace that emotion with a desire to emulate them. I don't feel envy at their skill, really. Instead, I want to learn how to do that myself. That's inspirational. I may see a handsome or beautiful person and find that I admire their grace and appearance, but admiration isn't envy either. Uh, I might just simply say, wow, look at so and so. The ability to put a positive frame around an emotional reaction that might otherwise have been envy results from feeling that you yourself have a positive path in life. If you are content with what you have, you may feel admiration, the desire to emulate, appreciation, but there will be no unpleasant feeling attached to that because you've learned to desire what you have. And that's the real protection from a negative emotion. Be happy with what you do have. It's possible because most of us take too much for granted and don't feel enough gratitude from the good things our lives do contain. By reminding ourselves to feel grateful, we keep envy at bay. Philosopher-psychiatrist Viktor Frankl was kept in a concentration camp in Hitler's Germany. There was not a lot in his situation that one might envy. But he found he could still have moments of happiness, even in the midst of the concentration camp, because he found a way to be grateful for the things he did have. A beautiful sunrise, an especially flavorful cup of soup, the stars in the night sky. If he can do that in a concentration camp, we can all do that within the context of the lives we have. If you are focused on the good you have, you will not envy what others have, at least not for long. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. If I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel. Stay well and stay safe.